This is the account of the brave apostles. They followed Jesus Christ during his time on earth, learning directly from him and witnessing all his powerful miracles. After Jesus ascended to heaven, he gave them a great mission. They were told to go and spread his teachings to every corner of the known world. This mission was filled with immense danger and great peril. The apostles faced powerful empires and hostile beliefs that did not welcome their new message of faith. Their work challenged the existing religious and political powers. For this reason, many of the apostles were hunted, arrested, and sentenced to die for their unwavering beliefs. The story of their deaths is not one of failure. Instead, it is seen as the ultimate testament to their deep faith and their absolute conviction in Jesus. These men, who started as simple fishermen and workers, became giants of faith. Their endings cemented the foundation of the Christian church for all of history. It is important to note that only one apostle's death is recorded in the Bible. The stories of the others come from centuries of sacred tradition. These traditions have been passed down through generations of believers. They tell of great courage in the face of suffering and a deep, abiding love for God. We will explore the fate of each original apostle, including the one who replaced the traitor, Judas. Their journeys ended in many different and distant lands. Let us now begin with the man Jesus called the Rock. This is the story of the final days of the most prominent apostle, Simon Peter. Simon Peter was a passionate leader among the disciples. After Pentecost, his preaching was powerful, and he helped establish the early church community in Jerusalem. His missionary work eventually led him to the heart of the Roman Empire. He traveled to the great city of Rome to spread the gospel there. In Rome, he preached for many years, building a strong community of believers. However, the Emperor Nero began a brutal persecution of all the Christians. As the leader of the church in Rome, Peter was a primary target. He was arrested by Roman soldiers and condemned to death for his Christian faith. The sentence for his crime was crucifixion. This was a common and agonizing method of execution used by the Romans to make a public example of people. According to a very strong and ancient tradition, Peter made one final request. He told his executioners that he was not worthy to die like Jesus. He asked them to crucify him on the cross upside down. This last act of humility showed his deep reverence for his Lord and his Savior. The Roman soldiers granted his request. Peter was martyred, crucified upside down on Vatican Hill in Rome, a powerful symbol of his unwavering devotion. His death did not stamp out the faith in Rome. Instead, his courage inspired the Roman Christians to remain strong in the face of terrible persecution. Next, we shall tell the story of Peter's brother Andrew. He was also a fisherman and was the very first disciple that Jesus ever called. Andrew was a great evangelist who traveled extensively. Tradition states that his mission work took him to the lands around the Black Sea and into Greece. In Greece, specifically in the city of Patras, his teachings became very popular. Many people converted to Christianity because of his powerful and sincere words. The local Roman governor, a man named Aegeates, became very angry. He saw the new faith as a threat to the worship of the pagan gods. Andrew was arrested and brought before the governor. He refused to renounce his faith in Jesus, so he was sentenced to die a painful death. He was condemned to be crucified. Like his brother Peter, Andrew also had a special request regarding the instrument of his own impending torturous death. Andrew did not feel he was worthy to be crucified on a traditional cross. He asked to be tied to a cross shaped like an X. This X-shaped cross is now known as a saltire, or St. Andrew's cross. He was tied, not nailed, to prolong his suffering in his final testimony. For 2 long days, Andrew hung upon that cross. He continued to preach to the people who had gathered there, comforting them until he died. Now we turn to the story of James, the son of Zebedee. He and his brother John were very close followers of the Lord Jesus Christ. James was a member of Jesus' inner circle. Along with Peter and John, he was a man of great passion and deep, uncompromising faith in the gospel. His fate is the only one described within the Bible itself. We can find the account of his death written in the book of Acts. He preached with great boldness in Jerusalem and Judea. This angered the local ruler, King Herod Agrippa, who wanted to please the religious establishment. Around the year 44 AD, King Herod ordered the arrest of James. The king wanted to make an example of a high-profile church leader. James was condemned to death without a long trial. The sentence was not crucifixion, but a much quicker, more direct method of execution favored by the authorities. The book of Acts simply states that James was killed with the sword. This is widely understood by historians to mean that he was beheaded. James was the very first of the 12 apostles to be martyred. His death was a great shock and a profound loss to the early church. Let us now speak of his brother John. This is the same John who wrote the Gospel, several letters, and the book of Revelation. John's fate was very different from all the other apostles. He is known as the only one who was not martyred for his strong faith. He lived a very long life, guiding the church for many decades. He eventually settled in the great and influential city of Ephesus in modern-day Turkey. During a time of intense persecution under a Roman emperor, John was arrested. An attempt was made on his life to stop his powerful preaching. Tradition says that his enemies tried to kill him by boiling him in a huge pot of oil. Miraculously, he survived the ordeal completely unharmed. After this failed execution, he was not set free. Instead, he was exiled to the remote and barren Greek island of Patmos for his crimes. It was on the island of Patmos that he received the heavenly vision. He wrote down this amazing vision, which became the book of Revelation. After the emperor died, John was finally released from his exile. He returned to Ephesus, where he continued to lead the church and to write. John died peacefully as a very old man. His long life was a testament to God's protection, and he left behind invaluable writings for us. The next apostle we will discuss is Philip. He was from the same town as Peter and Andrew, and was one of the earliest followers. Philip preached the gospel in parts of Greece, Syria, and Phrygia. His work brought the message of Jesus to many people in the region. His journey ended in the city of Hierapolis in modern Turkey. There, his success in converting people to the faith angered the local authorities. Philip was arrested along with Bartholomew. He was brutally tortured and then sentenced to be crucified for refusing to deny his deeply held Christian beliefs. Accounts from tradition say that Philip was crucified upside down. He died a martyr's death, staying faithful to Jesus right until his very last breath. Now we speak of Bartholomew, who is also believed to be Nathanael. He often traveled and preached the gospel alongside the apostle Philip. Bartholomew's missionary journeys took him to many distant places. Most traditions connect his final days to the kingdom of Armenia in the Caucasus region. In Armenia, he converted the king to Christianity. This enraged the king's brother, who ordered the immediate arrest and execution of the venerable apostle. The death that Bartholomew suffered was exceptionally cruel and truly horrific. It is remembered as one of the most gruesome martyrdoms of any apostle. According to the ancient tradition, Bartholomew was flayed alive. This means his skin was removed from his body while he was still conscious. After this terrible torture, he was finally beheaded. His immense suffering stands as a stark reminder of the brutality the apostles faced for their mission. The Apostle Thomas is our next subject. He is often called Doubting Thomas because he needed to see proof of Jesus' resurrection. After he believed, his faith became incredibly strong. Thomas traveled farther than most, taking the gospel message to the distant land of India. In India, he established a thriving Christian community. The ancient Mar Thoma Christians of India trace their spiritual roots directly back to his original mission. His success angered the local religious leaders and rulers. They saw his message as a direct threat to their power and their traditional Hindu faith. He was eventually condemned to die for his work. While he was praying on a hill, an enemy came up from behind to attack him. According to the strong tradition from India, Thomas was martyred. The apostle was pierced through with a soldier's spear, dying for his Lord. Now, let's talk about Matthew, the former tax collector. He left his profession behind to follow Jesus and wrote the Gospel of Matthew. After Jesus' ascension, Matthew preached in Persia and Ethiopia. Accounts of his death vary, but all of them agree that he died as a martyr. One of the most common traditions says he was murdered in Ethiopia. He had angered the local king by converting many people to the faith. The king ordered Matthew's death. According to this story, Matthew was killed with a spear or a halberd, sealing his testimony with his blood. We now consider James, the son of Alphaeus. He is one of the lesser-known apostles, and he is sometimes called James the Less. He is believed to have preached mainly in the region of Jerusalem. Tradition says he was the first bishop of the Christian church in that city. His leadership and preaching were very effective. However, this made him a target for the religious authorities who had rejected Jesus Christ as the Messiah. The story of his death says he was taken to the highest point of the temple. They commanded him to renounce Jesus in front of everyone. When he refused and instead preached about Jesus, he was thrown down. He survived the fall, so the angry mob below took matters into their own hands. The crowd then stoned him and beat him with clubs. James died praying for his killers, just as Jesus had done on the cross before him. The next apostle is Thaddeus, who is also known as Jude. He was not Judas Iscariot. He wrote the short Epistle of Jude. Thaddeus often traveled with Simon the Zealot on their missions. Their work took them to places like Judea, Samaria, Syria, and the lands of Mesopotamia. Their final mission is said to have been in the city of Beirut. There, they both met their end at the hands of a hostile crowd. According to the stories passed down through the centuries, Thaddeus Jude was martyred. He was beaten to death with a club for his faith. His companion on that final journey was Simon the Zealot. He was a member of a political group that strongly opposed the Roman occupation of Judea. After becoming a follower of Jesus, he channeled his passion into preaching. He and Thaddeus made a formidable and effective missionary team in their travels. As mentioned, he was martyred alongside Thaddeus in Beirut. The traditions concerning the exact method of his death have some very gruesome and specific details. The most common account says that Simon the Zealot was executed. He was put to death by being sawn in half by his persecutors. Now we must address the fate of the original 12th apostle. This man was Judas Iscariot, the one who betrayed Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. After his betrayal, Judas was filled with immense guilt and deep remorse. He tried to return the money, but the priests would not take it. Overcome with his terrible grief and shame, he could not live with himself. The Bible gives two slightly different accounts of his pathetic, lonely death. The Gospel of Matthew says that Judas went out and hanged himself. His life ended in a lonely act of deep despair and utter hopelessness. The book of Acts gives a more graphic description. It says he fell headlong, his body burst open, and all his intestines spilled out. Whichever account is more accurate, the end is the same. Judas died in disgrace, a tragic end for someone who once walked closely with Jesus. With Judas gone, the remaining 11 apostles felt they needed to replace him. They needed to restore their number to 12 to fulfill the prophecy. They chose 2 candidates and prayed for God's guidance. The man who was ultimately chosen by casting lots was a faithful follower named Matthias. Matthias officially took his place among the 12 apostles. He embraced the mission to spread the gospel to the nations, just like all the others. His mission work is said to have taken him to Syria. Other traditions place him near the Caspian Sea, in the region of modern-day Georgia. Like most of his fellow apostles, Matthias also died a martyr's death. His preaching angered local pagans, who who refused to accept his new teachings. The details are not completely certain, as with some others, but tradition holds that he was first stoned by a violent and angry mob. After the stoning, as a final act of desecration, an executioner came. Matthias was then beheaded, ending his faithful service to God and the Church. So, we have seen the fates of these brave men. From Peter's upside-down crucifixion to John's peaceful death, their stories are truly remarkable. They faced unimaginable hardship, brutal torture, and certain death. Yet, they never gave up on their sacred mission to spread the good news. Each apostle, except for the traitor Judas, remained faithful to the end. They followed the example of sacrifice that Jesus himself had set for them. The deaths of the apostles were not the end of the story. Their martyrdom planted seeds of faith that grew into a worldwide Christian church. Their blood became the foundation upon which Christianity was built. Their courage has inspired millions upon millions of believers for 2,000 long years. They were ordinary men who were called to an extraordinary task. They answered that call with a faith that could not be broken, even by death. This is how the apostles died. Not in failure or defeat, but in the ultimate triumph of their faith, securing their legacy for all of eternity.